So episode 12 of Gamers is a very weird episode, especially because this is the last episode of the season and possibly series if this doesn't get a second season. All throughout watching this episode, I had a mixed bag of emotions. At times I was thinking to myself, this is kind of weird, it feels like just a fill-in episode, but it is what it is. And then when it got to the second half, I was like, okay, they're just doing the typical fan service episode to help sell the Blu-rays and DVDs. That's really disappointing. But when I look at this episode as a whole, it's actually pretty interesting, as it's more or less a commentary on the gaming and anime culture that surrounds us in this day and age. With the first half of really the entire episode, it's kind of built around this whole concept of DLC, and for those who aren't heavy into gaming, DLC is downloadable content, extra content outside of the initial release of the game that is usually sold to the consumer. Rarely is it free, and a lot of the times it's stuff that was required to be in the game from the start, but they just shoehorned in DLC to make consumers pay more and more. And just this commentary on the whole gaming culture and how we just eat up DLC, which is actually pretty clever because this show has never really been about gaming. Like, the gaming was a side element. The whole gaming idea behind this was more or less the gaming of misunderstandings and just relationships. But I do appreciate that because it was very interesting seeing it tackle the whole DLC culture, which, unless you're into gaming, you probably won't enjoy that type of commentary, but it's nice seeing Agri being like, isn't that just a waste of money? Like, why are you guys spending so much on it? Which at times you kind of feel like she is right. But the second half is where it really did come full circle for me, because you have these episodes that almost every anime or a majority of anime will do. The type of episode where they go to the beach, or they're in their swimsuits, or they're just completely naked in a sauna or of some sort. They're bathing. And there'll always be the white lines covering up the breasts. It'll just be completely focused on things that are supposed to be sexual and to get people aroused, but they'll have it censored so it incites the consumer to want to buy the Blu-ray and DVD because you'll get that uncensored goodness, whatever you want to call it. So when you have those, it's typically pretty bad, and it's not like it did anything interesting, but the commentary on top of it was actually, it felt like a mockery of anime fans and how they do the same thing that the gaming culture does, and it just eats up pointless merchandise for stupid reasons. Sometimes with DLC, you're just buying stupid cosmetic items that do nothing for the core content of the game. For anime fans in Japan, so many just buy the Blu-ray so they can see 2 seconds of uncensored anime tits. It's kind of ridiculous when you look at it, so I appreciate that this episode, the final episode for Gamers, was a commentary and almost mockery of both gaming and anime culture that was kind of respectable. This was one of my least favorite episodes of the show. Like, don't get me wrong, this was far from an amazing episode, but when I look at the episode as a whole, I actually respect it just because of this commentary, and I appreciate that if you are forced, if your hand's forced, you think, we need to have a fan service episode, a fill-in episode to promote these Blu-rays and DVDs, at least do something like this so someone like me who isn't amused by this point of pointless and mindless fan service can at least have something to digest and dissect, and I appreciate that. Because really, episode 11 was more or less a good stopping point for the series. Everything kind of came full circle. Of course, there was still plenty of ways that Chiaki and things like that would go with relationships, but you don't know if this will get a second season, and you don't know if anyone's going to want to go read the light novel, so you have to have one of those open-ended endings where it's good enough for anime only to stop at, but at the same time there is room to do more. So episode 11 did that. This episode is more or less the DLC episode for Gamers, and I appreciate the route they went, making this kind of social commentary on both gaming and anime culture, and I found it to be amusing. It didn't really make me laugh except one instance, but minus that, it was just an interesting episode. That's the easiest way to sum it up, as an interesting episode. It had some really nice anime and just kind of references within this episode here that I found a little amusing here. Agri, when she was like pulling out the wallet with money, wanting to buy her boyfriend cosmetic items in a game. There was some humorous moments. It's just a weird episode. It's one of the weirdest final episodes to a series I've seen in a while, and I thought my final thoughts of this episode were going to be pretty negative, but they're more or less moderate. Like, I just think it's interesting that they went this route, this kind of social commentary route. It wasn't an amazing episode, it was far from one of the best episodes, but I think a lot of people are going to dismiss it from what I saw on Reddit, things like that. A lot of people seem to be like, oh, this was just the fan service, go buy the Blu-rays and go buy the light novel kind of ending there, which it is. But episode 11 is more or less a stopping point. This felt like the kind of bonus episode, which is perfectly fine in my books because of how they took the route of the commentary here. But that's just me. I mean, Gamers as a whole was a pretty damn amusing show for me. Definitely the funniest show for the season for me. I thought it was a very entertaining series. It was very stupid. I still stick by what I said. The only way for the show to fully wrap up would be for all of them to just part ways and go back to their normal lives. But I think episode 11 did a good enough stopping point for the season. For someone like who doesn't really want more of this show, I feel like any more and I would grow kind of burnt out. This is a good enough stopping point for me. This was just the extra episode, the DLC episode, and I'm fine with that. This was far from a perfect series, but still, it was a damn fun series. It had good character interaction, some very funny moments, and the art and animation design was just on point when it wanted to be hilarious, and the OST is the standout for this show for me. I thought it was remarkable, and it's going to be sad to see it go away, but I think it's good to end on a pretty high note here. Even if you hated this episode, I think as a whole, Gamers was a fun ride. If you were expecting everything to come full circle and end here in episode 12, I think you're insane. Obviously, if you want that, you either have to wait for another season or go read the source material, but I like what they did. It feels like more anime are giving you more of the open-ended treatment here, where it isn't closing everything off, it isn't tying everything off, it leaves a room open for another season or to go read the light novel, but it doesn't completely slap viewers like me in the face and give us just a cliffhanger of an ending. This was a fun show overall, far from the best, but I enjoyed my time with it here. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What did you think of this kind of social commentary episode? And are you gonna go buy the Blu-rays for the uncensored tits? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And before we leave, smack that like button, show your support if you need channel. Be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.